I decided to come down and just feed everything and check on everything, make sure everything was still good. And the arowana was out of the tank on the floor right about where this chair is. What's up, YouTube? It's Mike here, back with another video. I'm gonna do some updates today and take you through some of the projects I'm working on, including a new tank and my automatic water change system. So I'm gonna go through that and yeah. Start with some tanks up here. Turk the Fahaka Puffer. He's a puppy dog. So doing well. He's got his 125 to himself. Eventually I do want to move him downstairs, maybe upgrade him, I don't know. I don't want to increase the amount of tanks I have. I'd like to downsize, but for now he's got a 125. He doesn't really need more than that, but I'm sick of having tanks up here. It's harder to do water changes upstairs, so eventually I'd like to put him downstairs with everything else. And the 54-gallon corner with Herman the flower horn. I also want to somehow manage to get him downstairs. That would be more ideal for him. I upgraded his filtration from a canister to a little sump, and it was a big mistake. So it's like it's a DIY sump, and it works fine, but it was a big mistake because it's really loud. That overflow is extremely loud, so I'm sick of listening to it. And again, he doesn't get a lot of attention, just like Turk doesn't, because they're in this room. We don't spend a lot of time in here, so I kind of feel bad for him. So I'd like to move him downstairs with everything else, just have all the fish downstairs. Okay, so back downstairs in the fish room. Well, we've had a few things happen. So let's go over, actually let's start over here. The 1100 gallon. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that recently we lost the big silver arowana. Got him in September of 2018. Had him for only about 15 months. He went from 3-inch to 24 inches, and we had a bad storm and lost power. Everything was fine in the tank at the time, and power came back on. I was pumped, everything powered back up. I didn't have any disasters, no leaks, so I was very happy. No fish died, everything was good. Arowana was in the tank, and I was up all night, so I went back to sleep for about an hour. And then woke back up, and I decided to come down and just feed everything and check on everything, make sure everything was still good. And the arowana was out of the tank on the floor right about where this chair is. The lids were on. A lot of these overlap pretty heavily. Like in this case, there's like over a foot of overlap. So that's doubled up. I installed this just to kind of help to keep this from popping up. It's actually really hard to lift that. So I don't know how he got out. This was not lifted. There's a possibility that he got, I would say this is the best possibility, but even then, this is actually pretty difficult to pull up. And he would have to have really squeezed through that. That's my best guess. He came out there. It's possible he came out through one of these spots too, and then flapped around on the top and then made his way up. I would expect the fall killed him. I don't know how long he was down there, but he was not completely stiff. I tried putting him back in the tank. He was dead, but I tried putting him back in the tank because he wasn't stiff. And I tried for a good half hour to resuscitate him. He was not coming back. So I was very, very upset about that. I did try my best with the lids here, but now it's got me thinking for the future on how I can fix this lid system to make it even more efficient for arowana. Arowana are one of the biggest reasons I made this tank. So arowana and stingrays are really my biggest thing. So I do love my iridescent sharks though. But I can't do anything about it. I lost my last silver in a similar manner. So I was trying to avoid it, and it still happened again. Oh well, I can't do much about it. We still have this guy, which he was a rescue. He was well, I call him a rescue, but he came into the local fish store, really tiny, and came in with about 5 others. All the others died. He was still alive, and they sold him to me for 10 bucks. And I was like, I'll give it a chance. We didn't think he had much chances of living, and I was real delicate with him, and sure enough, he did live. He just has not grown like other silver arowanas that I've kept. His growth rate has been very slow. So, but I'd say he's over a foot now. I'd say he's about 14 inches. So that whatever. But we still got him. But anyway, back to what's new. So sad news, lost the arowana, and not to be replaced, but I got a great deal from my buddy Josh Tanks again. Shout out. I shout him out in a lot of videos now, I feel like, but he always gets some good deals. I just did a water change on this tank, so we got some bubbles, but I got 3 baby albino silver arowanas. So I am super excited. He gave me such an awesome deal on them. I couldn't pass it up. I want to grow all 3 out at once, and I did try having them all in together, but that wasn't working out. They started tearing each other apart. So maybe in the future, I will try that again under better circumstances when they are not as delicate. So we'll get some size on them, guys. I'm super excited about them. We still have Wasabi, the Maboo puffer, who is doing awesome. And I got my little iridescent shark there. Not really sure what kind of iridescent shark he is, but I'm interested in watching him develop, and he has finally started growing. So had him a while. He's a real slow grower. And my Tig is in here too, my Tigrinus, and he's just hiding in there, so I never see him. Eventually, I think what's gonna have to happen is I'm gonna have to grow out one of these albino silvers in new tank I'm setting up, one in the 300. I'm gonna move that silver arowana to the 1100. So move one of these guys once they've got a little size on them to the 300. One of these guys will be in a community cichlid tank, probably the 220, and then the other one will stay here in the 180, and they'll grow out that way until they are all of good size. And then the master plan would be to all 4 arowana, the silver, and the 3 albinos all in the 1100 with a better lid system, I promise. Doing water changes and whatnot. So again, a lot of you guys who follow me know that I had a bunch of fish that we got in all at once that I quarantined for a while and then started distributing them into different tanks. So I did distribute stuff between tanks that I felt like I could distribute the aggression properly. What happened about 4 weeks after getting them all in, I noticed that this red devil and my giant gourami started showing signs of a mouth bacterial infection. And long story short, it broke out in the fish room like a bad plague. A bunch of fish in the 1100 gallon broke out in it. A bunch of fish in the 210 also broke out in it. So what I ended up doing was I had to pull the largemouth. I had to pull the Pantano cichlid. I had to pull, obviously, the Argentea. So I pulled out the fish that started coming down with it in the 1100. I can't treat the 1100. Luckily, it did not spread to every fish. Luckily, rays don't show any signs. So pulled them out, and I treated the 240. I treated the 210 and the 55. Originally, I put the largemouth bass in the 55. He healed up pretty quick. Once I got the proper medicine to treat it, I tried a bunch of different things. He was definitely the worst. The largemouth showed the worst signs, and he's back to doing better. So this largemouth had it so bad, worse than any other fish, and he got it late. But I treated him in the 55 by himself, and he healed up really well. So I put him back in the 1100. Everything in the 240 has not really improved, and I'll try to show you if I can get Shelly here to open his mouth. You can kind of see he's got, it's almost like herpes. He's got like red little bumps in his mouth. So All these guys do too, although the Bacterial has greatly improved. So he's starting to look better finally. The Argentea has not really improved much, unfortunately. And now it has spread to Pinky here. I'm trying to get him to open his mouth. But now he's not gonna do it. I don't know why, he doesn't like the camera. But he has it as well. And then there was about 5 different fish, geos and mice and spillum. So a few different things started breaking out with it in the 210 as well. All at once, it was a mess. Everything in the 210 healed up. So I ended up treating with Kenaplex and nitrofurazone, and the combination of the two seemed to work in this tank and in the 55. So what I'm gonna do now is slowly pull fish from the 240 and treat them independently in the 55. So that's what I'm doing with the Pantano cichlid, and I'm hoping that this one heals up, because as you can see, it's not gonna focus, but hopefully I can get him to heal up. Tough to tell. He's doing well though, he eats really well. All of the fish, nothing ever stopped eating. That's the saving grace. But anyway, that's what I've been dealing with for the past few weeks, and unfortunately I'm not getting much improvement from this tank. So I want to try to update you guys and be honest and show you guys what I'm going through here. When you get a lot of fish in, even after a 4-week quarantine process, you're gonna have problems, and I think the 4 weeks just isn't enough sometimes. So you have to keep in mind that sometimes things are gonna happen. It really shows the importance of a quarantine process. And yeah, the longer the better. The longer the better. I learned the hard way. I'm still learning. I'm hoping that we don't lose anything due to this. I've had these giant gourami for years, and I really would hate to lose them due to this. They're big fish, they're harder to treat. It's going to cost more to treat them. I've spent a lot of money to treat them. Keep in mind, before I learned that Kenaplex and the nitrofurazone does seem to work, I tried a bunch of other meds first. There's a lot of different bacterial meds, and there's a lot of different fungal medications out there. Tried a bunch of things first that did not work, so yeah, lesson learned. Another thing I will update you guys on here, the tank is slightly cloudy right now, and it's better, believe it or not, than it has been. So a couple things happened, and I'm not sure why I got a bacterial bloom in this tank exactly, but I'm gonna go through the things that I think may have been a possible problem. The first thing I did was, as you see, there's algae buildup. So I scrubbed the tank. I had never had to scrub the tank before. I had never had the algae before. So I finally started noticing it, and I was getting sick of it, so I scrubbed it. And the tank went cloudy right away after doing that. So there's a good sign that I killed off a bunch of beneficial bacteria when I scrubbed the tank. And I know what you're thinking, well, it should be all in the filtration, but that's not how it works. There's a lot of surface area on the walls and on the floor of this tank. So good chance that I killed a lot of that off when I scrubbed the algae. So that's first possibility of what happened. The second one is I ran my new water line, and technically there shouldn't have been any problems with that, but at first I ran it directly into the media. So I don't know if some way that started killing off bacteria also, but what I ended up doing was I ran a line out so it actually drops in through the emergency drain now instead. So it's dropping in directly into the tank instead of directly into the media. I don't think that should have been a problem, but you never know. And the third possibility is I had to add a bunch more heaters for the winter to keep the tank at 80 degrees. The room stays around 76. Ideally, I do want to heat the room, but I don't have an efficient way of doing it right now. But I added heaters to the sump, is also kind of like a bioball chamber, which was a lot of my original established media that I used to jumpstart the cycle of the tank. So it's possible when I was adding those heaters and moving all those bioballs around that I somehow disturbed filtration enough to also contribute. So this was all like within a week or so. Maybe it was a combination of all three of those things, but it's been blooming pretty good. And even to the point where I did a water change, which I haven't had to do a water change on this tank since I started. Most of you know that it is on a drip system. So I did, like, I would say anywhere from 30 to 40% water change, and I've dumped a couple bottles of stability in also just to help. I don't believe I've had an actual ammonia spike, but the bloom is a bad sign. Just in case, I've been trying to keep precautions in dosing with prime. So looks a lot better than it did. Anyway, I wanted to update you guys on that. Anytime you're messing with anything, you gotta be really careful, especially if it's filtration or even just the tank itself. This 300 is on the same system, so very scary. I have cut back on feedings, which I don't like to do for these pups, for the Ray pups, but they are looking great, so they're hungry right now because I didn't feed them this morning. I've just been feeding them at night, and they're used to getting fed at least twice a day. Everything's freaking out. I think what I'm going to do, even though these bass are small, I think I'm gonna move those bass to the 1100. They know when it's feeding time and they act normal. But when I'm just walking around the fish room, or if I walk to the sink, they freak out and it drives me crazy, and I'm worried they're gonna kill themselves. I'm also worried they could hurt a ray or another fish. So I think I'm gonna move them to the 1100. I put the Moda in here and he's about their size. You see him in the back there. He's about their size and nothing has eaten him. So I think they'll be okay if I move them. Which brings me to my final update. These racks used to be over here. And I picked up this 220 gallon tank. It's got chamfered corners. It's really, really tall, but I'm excited about it. Terrible dimensions. It is not a monster fish tank. 7 feet long, 18 inch wide, 36 inch tall. It is not a monster fish tank. It's just too slim, but it is gonna be a great cichlid tank, and I think I'm gonna put a bunch of angelfish and some of the smaller gourami and stuff in there too. So I'm working on getting the plumbing done for this, and I built the stand. The stand has not been finished, but I think I'm going to get the tank running before I finish the stand. So yeah, the tank looks way better. With the light on it, you see a lot of scratches still. There's a lot of deep scratches. It was in really bad shape when I got it, but I'm okay with that. I think once it's full, it's going to look fine. I really am not too concerned about all those bad scratches. My 300 was worse than this, and now you don't really notice them when it's full. You don't notice any of the real scratches. So I'm hoping the same from this. I'm really excited to get this tank running. I really am. I will ask, you guys can comment down below what you think, but I had an idea to combine the filtration for the 210 and the new 220 down here. Right now I got a 40 breeder for the sump on this and an FX6, but what I was thinking is add an FX6 to the 220 and maybe get like a 100 gallon sump, maybe want a 100 gallon stock tank, and run them both. Just add another tower in the 100 and run both tanks in the same sump. Tell me what you guys think of that. Maybe I'm glutton for punishment doing that. The other option is either run the other 40 breeder, or I made the stand so you can fit a 55 under it. So I could throw a 55 for a sump and just run that thing independently. I could use this 40, leave that there, run it independently off of a 40, something like that. I haven't decided, but let me know what you guys think of that. Obviously, if I ever have some kind of outbreak or whatever, that will be a problem. And then I got this big over 400 gallon system that I'd have to try to treat, so that would be a problem. But end game would be, I think my plan is the cichlids and the vieja that get big will, obviously the plan would be to put them in the 1100 someday. Everything else I want to put in this 220 for the small fish, including a bunch of my bandit cichlids, the angels, and these gourami. All that stuff, just big community tank in this 220. That frees up this 210. I can move Pinky, the giant gourami, to his own setup, which I think would be pretty good for him. It's still small, but it's wide. It'll give him lots of space. Then I can open the 240 back up for Shelly the giant gourami and find some tank mates that Shelly will allow, which Shelly does allow some catfish and things like that. I'm gonna try, I think, the pike cichlid and a few different things. So big community tank with hopefully Shelly the giant gourami, and then Pinky has to be alone. He gets his own 210, which is fine for him for now. I mean, ideally I wanted to give him the 1100, but he's not allowing it. And then big tall community tank over here. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you for bearing with me. I know I was all over the place in this video, but again, a lot to catch up on. I didn't really know where to start, so I figured let's just go through everything and I will just talk to you guys and try to explain what I've been doing. But yeah, let me know in the comment section any of these ideas and things that I'm planning on, what you think of them. And I really appreciate the support as always. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, Off the Deep End Aquatics, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.